It is so good to be back here in front of you talking about covenant with you again, beloveds. Today, we are going to be talking about weaving parts of our lives together. We'll talk a little more about those African birds I started talking about in the Time for All Ages, and how we can use their lessons right here in our Western New York congregation about a woven together life, and the renewal process, starting that in earnest for our beloved UU Amherst Congregational Covenant. But I'm going to go back and start with another story. Is that okay? You're like, you're in charge. I can't stop you, right? So Simon and I, my son Simon, were in Zambezi National Park in Zimbabwe, Africa, on August 1st. And we went on this thing called a game drive, which is the adventure of riding in a high truck with open sides, looking for native wildlife with an expert guide. So here we are, driving, looking for cool things. I'm going to show you some cool pictures of other things we saw. But I was fascinated by these odd trees with masses of something all over. We'd paid a lot of money for the chance to glimpse giraffes and lions and elephants, and I'm sitting next to Simon, frantically taking pictures of trees. So I'm looking and I'm saying, I think these might be nests. And so after about 10 minutes of every time I saw one, taking a picture of one of these trees, I asked the guide, who told me with a smile on his face, that they were the nests of these birds called village weavers who live all over sub-Saharan Africa. And we drove around and we were looking for glimpses of more glorious megafauna. That's what we call them in the world of people who do wildlife. Megafauna, the big, huge things. And we did see elephants. We saw a lioness. We saw antelopes and alligators and buffaloes and more. I still kept looking for these trees. Simon, and some of you have met him. He's a lovely young adult. He was raised by this congregation in part. He'll be back at Christmas time and playing the cello. But he was actually laughing at me out loud in front of all of these strangers and his friend Giulietta. And then, about halfway in, being a scientist and realizing, he started taking pictures too, so then he stopped laughing. Okay, I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me go back to the sermon you came for. You're like, I came for a sermon about covenant, and you're talking about something else. And then I'll get back to how this works together. So we opened, there we go. So these are the trees. I'm taking pictures of all these trees. They're everywhere. Literally, you'll see lots of pictures of them. Less than 10% of the good pictures I took. There were some pictures where we were driving, and I actually just got the tail of it. But there are fun pictures throughout. So these are the pictures. But let's go back and talk about the opening words of Reverend Alice Blair Wesley from a living tradition. And I want to read these again, and I want to have you have the words if you want to look at them. We are bound together in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied to a single garment of destiny. Whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly. We are bound together by the spirit of love, the bonds of affection. May we grow in understanding and forgiveness, in honesty and patience, in mutual trust for the good of all, a mutual trust, and may we live for the good of all. Reverend Wesley, who's now retired, is known, as I mentioned, for her commitment to sharing the history and meaning of covenant and inviting so many of us UUs to think more deeply about the role of our faith. So let's talk a little about covenant and UUs. Again, I've done it before, and I'll do it again. But so when we use the word covenant in Unitarian Universalists, we're speaking of something both ancient and very alive. Our faith is not held together by creed. You know, those statements in other faiths that other followers of other faiths profess to all simultaneously believe. Instead, we create a covenant. Covenant. The promises we make to one another about how we will live in community, grounded in love, connected through mutual respect. As a lawyer, I must tell you, a covenant is not a contract. A contract is a formal thing that protects the signatory's interests. There's required classes in contract law when you go to the first year of law school. By the way, my lowest grade in law school. I digress. Unlike contracts, covenants protect and nurture relationships. For those of you who were there in my last sermon about covenant, I talked about a covenant that the father of my children and I entered into in 1994. So covenants can be all sorts of things. That can be personal, like that one. They can be congregational, like the one we just read. There can be covenants for committees and other kinds of relationships. So when we as UU speak about covenants, we talk about writing down how we're going to act with trust and accountability and the shared aspiration to become the people we wish to be. I love the wording that the Unitarian Universalist Association described it. It's on this page if you want to go find that page, or you don't have to because I'm going to read you some of my favorite words from that page. Covenant is the silk that joins UU congregations. Covenant is the silk that joins UU congregations, communities, and individuals together in a web of interconnection. It is the framework within which we try to live out our values. It's not a rule book. It's a way of being. It guides how we navigate conflict, how we return to one another after hurt, how we hold one another in the ongoing, sometimes hard work of spiritual growth and justice. And it's something that we create and then we recreate together. This goes back to our spiritual ancestors. The early New England Congregationalists believed that a church is not created by decree, which kind of got them in a lot of trouble with a lot of their friends because that was not the way that churches worked for most other people. These New England folks believed that it was mutual consent of members that mattered. They gathered, they covenanted together, they formed communities grounded in promise rather than hierarchy. So today, across the whole world, UU congregations like ours continue that legacy. We are proudly self-governing. We freely gather. We are bound not by set forth to us beliefs, but by love. So when I talk about renewing our UU Amherst covenant, I'm inviting us collectively to ask, right here, right now, who are we as a community? Who do we want to become together? What promises will guide us as we live into that becoming? At the end, we're going to ask you some questions, and we're going to come out with a mic and talk to you for a few minutes. But just let's keep those in your mind. Who are we as a community? Who do we want to become? And what promises do we need to make? So now let's go back to the village weaver birds. I saw them after I did my last covenant sermon, and they've come to animalify my vision for how our covenant can work. So Simon and I are there in the front row of the truck. Behind us were a bunch of friends and family and other people, and we were all passing tree after tree. I was taking all these pictures. Hundreds of them, hundreds of these nests alive with chatter, chaotic, beautiful chaotic. The trees didn't all look the same. Some of the trees were densely packed. Some of the trees had 2 or 3. But there was no tree that was just a tree alone. There were groves of trees that were near each other that had these bird nests. So I'm thinking to myself, I'm looking at some of the ones that are really closely packed, and I'm like, if I were a bird, I wouldn't want to be in that tree. I mean, if it's 2025, I'm kind of introverted, kind of need to be perched a few branches over. I love y'all deeply. I need a little space to do my own weaving over here. I want to be able to see you, know you're there, but I don't want to be right near you anymore. I belong, but I belong kind of over here. Now let me note, my early years here, some of you remember, when my people who I birthed were still pretty little, I was constantly close to people in this community. Every week we were packed in what we called RE, which is now Faith Development. It was all about closeness, tight connection. I was totally cool with having us all together. So we change where we want to put our nests over time, and that's okay. Because I'm still in the UU Amherst grove of trees with all our nests. So I'm starting to think about this in the truck in Zimbabwe, and like leaning over and whispering at Simon, who's trying to look for elephants, because that's what he wants to do, and I'm like looking at nests of birds. So you built your nest your way, I'll build mine, we'll still be on the same tree. And as we're talking about renewing our covenant, just think about if this works for you. Let me tell you a little bit more about these super cool birds, because I'm a professor, so I did some research. Village weaver birds, Ploceus culcatatus, have colonies of nests where some are right in the center of each other, and some on the edges, and some over in other trees. Each nest is woven by one bird from grass, reeds, palm feathers, and the young are raised there, and they have communal lives. Hundreds of them sometimes share the same trees, but for sure, there's more than one of these nests in a tree side by side. The scientists describe them as colonial and semi-territorial species. They defend their own space, but they live in close association. In Nigeria, one study showed that in 94 trees that were near each other, there were 5,800 nests altogether. And so some of them would just be in a few trees, and some of them were on top of each other. And the patterns aren't random. Their structure and proximity contributes to the stability of the whole. And their nest building skills improve with practice, and they learn as they build these nests to build better nests the next year. They also tend to face their nests in the same direction. Usually in the place that we were at, they all face westward or southwestward in southern Africa, including Zimbabwe where we were, to reduce the intense exposure to midday sun and maximize ventilations. You're like, okay, Kim Diana, stop being a professor. But what I want to talk about is these village weavers. We can have our own spaces, generally facing in the same direction, and just make agreements as to how we're going to do that. So they're part of the same community, we're part of the same community, we share resources, they share resources. So it's a metaphor we can use. Our own individual lives, our own beliefs, our own ways of showing up, gathering in this congregation to build something shared. Our covenant, you can kind of see as our tree, the sturdy center that holds us all together as we build, learn, rebuild, and start again. Oh, and like the weaver birds, we don't always get it perfectly. Sometimes branches break, sometimes our nests unravel, but the miracle is that we keep going and we help each other. Which brings us to this moment at UU Amherst of recreating and renewing our covenant. We had something that wasn't quite a covenant, but it was an agreement that used to be read every service. Not quite yet, but soon. I'm going to read something first. Do any of you remember the words of celebration and prayer? For those of you who don't remember it, I'm going to tell you, for the first few years, this was read in every service, and this meant as much to me then as the covenant does now. May your house be a place of happiness for all who enter it, a place where the old and the young are renewed in each other's company, a place for growing, a place for music, a place for laughter, and when shadows and darkness fall within its rooms, may it still be a place of hope and strength for all who enter it, especially for those who may be entrusted to your care. May no person be alien to your compassion. May your larger family be the family of all humankind, and may those who are nearest to you and dearest to you constantly be enriched by the beauty and bounty of your love for one another. It's a little longer than our one. We probably don't want to make one this long for our new covenant. But I want to talk about the fact that we make agreements, and we have in our UU congregations for years. It's not administrative work, it's spiritual work. It invites us to reflect deeply, like the village weaver birds, and how our village is going to be together. So we're going to gather input, thinking about using meetings, online polls, written reflections, and I envision us holding community conversations in many ways, including on Zoom for those of you who are online. We're not going to forget you at all. We are reflecting who we are becoming. Social psychologist John A. Powell calls the work of bridging the practice of expanding belonging to include more people in our circle of care. So our covenant at our best is belonging made real, inviting us to care for those who are here and to widen our embrace. A covenant that is belonging made real. So while I'm not the director of this process, I'm just helping with it, we're going to chat a bit today just for a couple of minutes. Take a moment right now to kind of, in your head, meditate on what this congregation means to you. Remember, those of you who are here at the last covenant, we put words on paper. Now we're going to do a bit of a call out. What can you offer that we haven't offered? What do we need in this space? What do we need to add to our existing covenant to make it so, if we need to add anything? And so April's going to go around for a few of you to share your ideas. How should we do this? This is an ideas of how should we do this process, and what do we need to see in this process? Meetings, Zoom, collecting written input, and or what do you want to see? So I want to make sure that as we finalize the design of collecting the information, that you all are heard, that we are making sure that there's belonging happening. So April will come around. Raise your hand if you'd like to share how the process should be and what we should focus on.
I'd like to have an acknowledgement of art within the community. We have beautiful weavings. We have wonderful pictures. We have so many talented people in this community that share their artwork. And I think that that's a big bond.
Thank you. Other thoughts? We've got a hand right back there, and we've got a hand there.
Coming to the back first.
And now you're starting to think. Thank you.
I'm pretty new, so I was just about collection. I think that like Google Forms is an excellent thing to do for the original one. So ideally, everybody has maybe a week or two to respond in a Google Forms, and you can gather that data and then talk about them within a group. Or I think that there needs to be a combination of both online and in person so that people can share, and also that there can be discussion around it.
Thank you. Google Forms or some other way, and in writing, so that we're inclusive of people who love technology and people who just want to use a pen. We had Linda wanting to say, Linda Joy.
Coming to you, Linda Joy. Hold the mic closely.
My name is Linda Joy, and I think that it's really important, this is a process I'm working on, trying to externalize all the procedures and processes in my head out into paper. April and I have been talking about that so that people can participate more in the things that we have been doing as we've been growing. Now there's many more people, many more interests, many more hands, and getting the procedures out so that we can all know how to do things. Like, for example, this morning, I filled all of the vinegar water sprays in the kitchen. And that's a great job for somebody who's new to do. It's a super easy thing, and it's so helpful because that's what we use every day on Sundays to clean up the tables. And when they're low, it needs to be monitored and done. And we have so many procedures like that, and they're just kind of stuck in all of our heads of where things are, how things are. And I watched a video about it a while ago on a training, and I don't even know where it was, but it was about how to teach the younger generation how to, they called it, do church. I like to call our service and how to do that, how to be in community. We have to pass that on, and we can't hold it as an older generation, and I feel like that is part of the covenant.
Coming to Rachel. Please hold the mic closely.
Okay. So kind of piggyback on that, what if you did like a mentorship program, people who are interested in like expanding their works in the community? That way we can get the younger generation taking over for the older generation, because I know that is lacking in some other churches. So have a mentor thing, so have designated mentors.
I can tell we're going to have great ideas. Did you want to? Okay, we'll have one more and then we'll close up.
One more.
Well, I'm going to mention something that doesn't get much attention usually, and that is what happens when somebody is unhappy about something. And I'm not going to really specify what this is or how it happens, but sometimes people get unhappy in a smaller or a larger way. We don't seem to have a process to deal with that, or even a way to tell people, okay, if you're unhappy about something, here's where to go, here's who to talk to. We're not trained in this when we grow up. We just rattle around and handle it however, and sometimes we're not very happy about the outcome, and neither are other people. There's got to be a better way.
And I'll just hog the mic last and say thank you, Wendy, for saying that, because one of the biggest things about covenant is that we're all going to mess up, period. And we have to be able to stay in relationship, and that's like some of the hardest work of covenant, in my opinion.
Thank you, and thank you all. We're going to have some great ideas, so hold the ideas that you started to have and think about them on the Google Forms or the times that we're going to get together so we can get our covenant renewed and recommitted. So in this time of immense change in the world, in our faith, we have the chance to use your ideas to become these birds and do these renewed covenants that ground us in love and carry us forward and meet the moment that we are in. So thanks in advance for leaning into our renewal process. Be on the lookout for more. Find me or Reverend Michelle in the weeks ahead as we go forward in this. And so this is going to allow us to look beyond our nests for the big things that we want to explore, the amazing megafauna that we can look out on in the inspirational sermons that we hear from Reverend Michelle and other guests. And with our building a covenant will allow us to look beyond and see what's out there. In closing, this process invites all of us to become like the village weaver birds, bringing our own thread, our own song together, re-envisioning our shared congregation. And through this process, we'll be invited to trust that we can recommit to something strong enough to hold, nurture, and keep deeply connecting us into the future, to live more fully into our UU values and center love. May it be so.